And we live.
Hey, yo.
Yeah, you gotta give a few minutes for some people to start coming in, and I also gotta start pushing this out for folks. I think you're echoing, Jake. Do you got headsets in? A headset in or something?
I do, but I briefly just pulled it up on my phone.
Uh,
Let's see here.
what else was I looking to do? Oh yeah, I gotta put this out to Discord. Oh shit! Forgot to add everybody for the Discord so everyone gets the notification. Ow. Yes, and now uh, send that. What the? There we go. Go here.
Let me see if I remember everybody's Twitter ads.
Hmm.
I'm going to tweet about it too.
Oh yeah. There we go. And there we go. I think that's sent to just about all these Discords I wanted to send that to. I should stream this to y'all, but wait for that later. Alright, where are the...
Is the Soul Minded their Twitter ad?
Did what?
Third person. Soul Minded.
Uh, did they get their Twitter? What are you saying?
I'm trying to get everyone's ads, and I typed
Oh,
in
Soul...
storyteller.
Yeah,
Soul
his
Minded.
Soul Minded is a storyteller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're just giving a few minutes for people to be able to come in. So,
And then I can rant and rave,
yeah.
both at the same time.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ranting and raving going to be happening here.
Oh my god, it's Zymar Z. I remember you. Hi, Zymar.
What's this tweet you put? If y'all want to hear me rant with these people about frontiers,
Um, just I feel like that's all the info that they need.
Geek Tunes. Shout out to Geek Tunes. Like, bit early for a stream, isn't it? It's 2 p.m. over here.
We just want to make you all like get up, get out of bed,
Right,
and or stay in bed and be awake.
right. Only, yeah, but yeah, it's like only 2 p.m. over here. I mean, sure, it's morning in certain places for some people, but here it's better. Chilixion, shout outs to Chill. If I hear it's better than Generations, I'm dropping to my knees and throwing up on camera.
No, no, no.
Mm,
Hey,
mm.
that's dangerous
Reach of the
thinking.
century.
It's dangerous thinking right there.
I mean, this is a stream for some dangerous thinking, so.
I guess. On point. I'm saying
Also,
hi to people. Hi, Andre Partridge.
should ask to the chat if everybody's audio's coming through. Probably gonna turn up Jake a little bit on my end so it's heard clearer.
I wish I knew how to turn up my audio more from my end. Actually, hold on. Let me check my settings.
It's like 1 in the afternoon where I am. Huh. Yeah. Geek Dude is like, it's Sonic the Hedgehog. Everything's dangerous. Thank you. Exactly. Like, see?
You got a point. You got a point.
Probably switch us over to like to the main scene when we get like to 2:10. So just so we can let more people in.
I know that I woke up this morning, immediately saw like a 40-minute video about Sonic Frontiers, um, and they were so right, but they were such a doomer about it. it's so obvious that they were like tired. They're like I've been through the roller coaster of like Sonic games. At this point I'm just indifferent. It's
Jeez.
like damn,
Like
the
this.
Sonic seniors they're dropping.
Pretty much. Ooh. It's it's definitely interesting going into like with Sonic because it's like so much has been kind of riding on this hopefully turning out good, and thankfully it's like we avoided any '06 situation or even a Jesus a boom situation. That's the
If
biggest
it,
thing.
I feel the way that I always describe this to like folks is that I like this is probably the most competent experience with Sonic I've had since Generations.
Hmm.
And that's the
Hmm.
most I could say. And I say competent specifically because even though I know that there's still aspects of this game that's been rushed, I still feel like it's like there's enough content in this game that it's worth its price.
That's my thing. Like, I feel like a lot of people are gonna get hung up on the idea that it's like, oh, the way it is not worth the 60. I'm like, but you get a lot out of this game. It has like the play hours to like justify it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, so the idea that it's like you should wait for a price drop. I'm like, no. Like, especially since it's coming around the Christmas season, around Christmas, it's like, no, you can pick this up at a good at its full price. It honestly, uh, it does justify it.
Like if
I
you
think I don't know. I see why people would wait for a price drop, and I feel like depending on like if they're a Sonic fan on how invested they are with the series or what their favorite Sonic games are, I would encourage a price drop, or waiting for that solely because, like I said, the game has a lot of content. I think the problem is that uh, it doesn't come together in a complete package because of how the open zones are designed.
Hmm.
It's lacking so I feel like that's really like the main grievance people have with the game, because they'll talk about the pop-ins or like the puzzles or X, Y, and Z, but that's all like open zone stuff, and I feel like it's just not like in an interesting. I mean that's my main gripe of the game is that it's not an interesting environment, but because I think because of that, it creates a lot of atmospheric problems compared to something like Breath of the Wild, which is trying to duplicate or imitate how Breath of the Wild you have like this big open world, but the locations are based off of other places you've been to in other Zelda games, and I feel like the islands, they're super barren. Like they have enemies, but it just doesn't hit the same because the enemies, they have like their loading animations in, which makes sense with like the ancients technology and everything. But compare that to like Breath of the Wild, where you can see enemies a mile away, and then you get to strategize. How am I going to get the jump on niggas? You can't do that here.
yeah.
They get the jump on you unless it's like one of the really big ones. And I think the open zones, like you don't have much of an incentive to 100% them. Like you can, you can like get everything, but it's not like Breath of the Wild where it's like, okay, I'm gonna get like complete all this map, and I'm gonna forge all these weapons, and Breath of the Wild, there's reasons for you to explore certain areas so you can get certain items to create certain things, and with this game, not saying that they should have added that, but there's nothing on that level to really like incentivize you playing the open zone more than once. And it also, I don't know, I hate that they move you from one zone to another after you like complete it. Like I would rather much prefer being able to go back to the zones before beating the game.
Um, I don't
It's
know.
like
I mean, my thing though with the whole Breath of the Wild comparisons is that I think it's more. I feel because even like Mario Kishimoto, like the director, he even made a statement that he didn't that the team didn't really like the comparisons to Breath of the Wild, like because in like it I kind of get why because like it does because it's like it has some aspects in terms of somewhat of breathtaking atmosphere, but like in terms of mechanics, it is so far removed. Like that's why, like if anything, I usually compare it closer in concept to like Mario Odyssey, but only in terms of concept. You know what I
Not
mean?
do that though, because when you start the open zone, you're literally because again you're doing like those map puzzles about more of the map. They copied it from. It looks just like Breath of the Wild when you get to a tower
I
and
mean,
how it shows the map and everything. They have
I know
the
that, but
fucking
like,
rip-offs. Like there's so much they did from Breath of the Wild that they can't say we don't appreciate the Breath of the Wild comparisons. Then they shouldn't have fucking copied their whole shit.
To be fair, if you really look at Sonic Frontiers, it's probably like it's kind of an in between of what Breath of the Wild and Odyssey are doing. It's large enough, wide enough to where the comparisons to Breath of the Wild completely make sense, and they're making direct. Let us not ignore the Cocos. There are things just like that where they are like clearly the people who worked on this game liked Breath of the Wild, but they aren't trying to be Breath of the Wild, and that can be a little confusing, because the comparisons to Mario Odyssey are also fair, especially considering the purple coins, but Frontiers, what it probably could have benefited from was maybe not hyper focusing. How do I describe? Because you know how like when you like have those, you fight those mini bosses, all they drop is a gear. They shouldn't only drop a gear.
Yep.
Because like once you beat the game, and once you beat the game, those kinds of collectibles are pointless now. Like you don't need them. You don't even like get a completion bonus. There's nothing to like. The game frequently gives you them, no matter what. There's no max to get. So now when you fight those bosses, you're pretty much just fighting them for like the like just to fight them. It's just usually enough for people. If maybe when you fought those bosses, they dropped maybe if they dropped rings, if they dropped, I don't know, just something else besides just the gear. Especially when like if I fight them and I'm at max ring count, and fighting them and the clunkiness of the fighting mechanics causes me to lose all my fucking rings, and all I get is a gear. I'm pissed off. I don't want to fight them.
I think I don't know. I am gonna be making a lot of Breath of the Wild comparisons just because I did just replay it, and also like again, like obviously there's a lot of inspiration there. But I think something they could have done, like to take like a Sonic spin on Breath of the Wild, is like you defeat a Guardian, they drop like different like ancient screws or cores and stuff, and you can collect those. You can sell those for money, but you can also collect enough of those to turn them into like weapons, like armor and stuff. It would have been cool because they have the soap shoes, and then for right now they seem like the only cosmetics. But I know a lot of people are bringing up cosmetics. Imagine if if these enemies were dropping like different components that you could use to synthesize different shoes that maybe had different stats. Like maybe there's shoes you can get from beating certain amount of like squids, like the squid enemies with like the purple trail they leave behind. Imagine being able to make like fucking squid shoes where maybe, because I think an issue I have a lot in the game, and this is just me, like this isn't anything against the game, it's just me like running willy-nilly, but it's easy for you to like fall off mountains and just off of cliffs and everything. Like imagine if you had squid shoes that kind of created, like when you boost, it kind of creates a purple trail, so then you're able to kind of like save yourself from that or something, or like maybe a little bit of a glide, or maybe there's
like more like basically add more abilities with like That's my thing. I think with the amount of collectibles they have, I think is fine. Like, but I think the problem is, like Jake said, there's no real incentive after getting them. You know what I'm saying? Like it feels like you get them, and then once you've done the major thing, it's like, what else is there to do now? Like, if anything, they should have they should have had like more customization options, like wardrobes options, or like more like. And this is like an idea I heard before, like from other like Sonic tubers, and they could have implemented like a movement skill tree, if anything, and like collectibles probably could have been pushed towards that, because that would have been actually nice to. Because it's cool that it's like we have all these different options in terms of combat, but it's like, what about some movement options? You know, what if we
Yep.
had like maybe you can unlock the actual regular spin dash or something, or
Yep.
like you could stick to whatever wall instead of a particular wall, maybe, or
It's
I don't
crazy
know.
because they have one single skill that is related to movement, and it's the trick system. Because that's not
Yep.
used in battles, that's used when you're traversing it. It's the only one.
Right, and that if anything, that could have been like they could have built a little more from there. Like we could have seen more like actual movement options versus just the simple than just the simple combat stuff, you know.
Speaking of normal movement options, why isn't the normal homing attack in the game? Like
Well, you
I
mean
get
like to jump up and
it,
have to homing?
yeah, like just how you had it in like the hub worlds for Sonic Unleashed and Generations, or like how it's just there
Oh,
in Sonic in the adventure games, like you can just homing attack whenever. Like
like the dash thing.
I
Like,
find it annoying in Frontiers that like when you're not in a battle and you jump and like press square, it just he just hits the air and then it's not exciting. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like what would putting the homing attack in like really have killed them that much? Because it's technically in terms of like you're approaching a spring or an enemy and then you like go up and hit them, but even then the animation's not the same, which
so
is fine. I like that Sonic's uh more he's using his fisticuffs in this game. Like I think they should have been doing that in the games,
you're
but
referring to the air dash thing that he does when like there's nothing around to homing attack, but he still like launches forward when
Yeah.
you press
Are
it.
you?
yeah.
I missed that too.
Oh, you mean like you just like in say the adventure games where there's no enemies or anything to home into, you could just push forward that type of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, I think
I think it's really weird not to have that in a game that is about like traversal and movement.
I think it was probably a case of like even with that, it's not helpful. I mean, because I feel like it would only be helpful if you had like if this was a full momentum based type of game. Because like even because as I was playing, I never missed. I wasn't thinking, damn, I wish I could do that
You'd be
regular air
shocked
dash.
to how many times that air dash thing has saved people in both Unleashed
Yeah.
and Generations. And I don't really understand either why. I'm
I,
assuming that they probably just didn't include it because like they just didn't feel it was necessary or they didn't have time.
I
But
think it.
like,
I don't know when I was. I don't know what because I think the air dash basically gets replaced by the air boost because it's like well it basically does the same thing. Like you could just
Yeah, but
jump in the air and
Unleashed
boost.
even Unleashed had both the boost and the homing attack. Like you still air dash when you didn't boost.
I do think they need to tweak that air boost thing a little bit because like I haven't found it consistent enough to where I want to use it.
Boosting in this game is a mixed bag for sure.
Sort of. I mean, kind of. Yeah. Like I don't get a feel. I feel like it's one of those they do have to nerf it because it's like they don't want the game to break or like more or less like they don't want the game essentially to get to a point of we you basically are just skipping through the whole thing. You know, like they want you to be able to like really take in what they're doing. Like I think that's kind of what they were trying to go for with it.
Yeah, and I get that. I'm thinking more like when they go to do the next one, because like just playing this game, and especially having like a brain wired for like Unleashed Generations kind of gameplay,
Yeah.
it was kind of like it was hard to adjust to some of these new controls, especially when the cyberspace stages look exactly like those stages.
Okay, I hate how the cyberspace stages still use like the same.
The
Okay, I think
aesthetics.
my main issue with them is that they're blatantly taking the Unleashed Generations type stages, but they're applying it to this new gameplay style, which has enough differences to where stuff, even like boosting never feels hard in this game, like in the stage. It isn't like well, hard. I mean, like cool, like it doesn't feel as fun. Like it just
It.
kind of feels
I. w-
like
Yeah.
you're like lagged for a second.
Yeah. I will admit the a thing that kind of iffy on with the boost say in the cyberspace stage is that it still creates the effect of like oh yeah we have the woo sort of like idea of it but it doesn't have if it's not the exact effect per se you know it's like it make you know the music becomes like kind of muffled because he's traveling so fast but it's like he's not boost. He doesn't feel like he's going that
Exactly.
fast to
Yeah.
that degree, and I
Bring
and I
back
could
Sonic's woo!
I could understand kind of why it's like, okay, with the way these levels are, they're very short and sweet, but I don't know. I've thought about this for the longest before the game came out, and I always felt like the way they're doing this with the cyberspace levels is supposed to be a weaning phase. You know, it's supposed to be like, we are probably not going to continue this type of boost formula at all moving forward. Like, chances are they're just going to be like, no more boost at all. Like, because to be honest, like, once we got to Sonic Forces, I think that was them officially saying, we okay, we clearly bottomed out with the boost formula. We've reached the pinnacle of what boost could really become, because because let's face it, it's kind of a limited gameplay style. You know, it's like
Is it?
you
It's
can't.
about forces.
Okay, see, I feel like they never reached the potential of boost. I mean, I'm over boost. I'm like ready for them to move on past boost, but I feel like they never hit the potential of it because, like, they tweaked it in Generations, but like boosting in Generations isn't that different from Unleashed. They kind of just made it easier. I feel like boosting never reached its potential because they kind of just nerfed it each game, and they made the stages shorter in each game, like Sonic's day stages from Unleashed shorter in each game, like that kind of gameplay style. Like it averages like 4 or 5 minutes on Unleashed, and then like 2.5 minutes in Generations, and then it's like less than a minute or around a minute in Forces.
I think the reason why they would go the route of shortening it is because, like, in Unleashed, the levels were like, what, average almost 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and I think they were like, but you see in those levels they're very elaborate. They're big, and have like all these intricate detailings to them. But the big problem there is that you're basically zipping past all of it. You know, you're just going through it, and it's like, what are we building all these assets for if we're basically gonna just allow the player to just skip most of this? So that's why I think when we get to, say, Generations, and even to a degree Colors, it's like, let's kind of walk back at all the assets we're kind of overusing now,
You know,
because it's starting to get to a point of, we're kind of wasting time here by giving this so much detail just for it to be ignored. You know what I mean? It doesn't allow for the exploration either. That's why the Sun and Moon medals were so annoying and Unleashed, because it's like you can't explore properly.
Yeah.
you know what's actually my
No, I mean,
like
I
the-
get that. I'm just saying, like, because of that, because they kind of like downsize it rather than built upon it, it never really like I don't know. I'm not a video game developer, so I can't say like here's what they could have done. But I'm sure there's some really creative things they could have done with Boost that they just never did and probably never will now.
The funny thing about the boost in Frontiers is, like, oh, briefly before it, there's someone in the comments said, I wish we got Generations drifting, and I agree. Like, I was playing some stages and I was crying about it, but I could talk about that more later. But I had got a mod of the game, and it was like a momentum-based one, and there's a glitch that's part of it. I don't know really what's causing it, but the boost gauge depletes really, really quickly. But you reach max speed super, super quickly, so it kind of like evens out. And it affected cyberspace stages too. And I was kind of like, actually, I kind of dig the boost kind of being like a fast thing that you, instead of holding it, at least in the cyberspace stages, because I mean, like, there's not many instances in the cyberspace stages where you're holding the boost and you're not doing anything else. And I feel like that's probably, if they wanted to implement it in a way that is essentially like any of the stuff like the spin dash and such, but in an adventure kind of style, the short boost is probably a good way to go. Especially when they want it to also be a jump thing too. Having it be like it's a short burst, it's just a better conservative utilization of that boost.
Yeah, like, I've seen people
Work more. Basically, what you said, Jake. Like if they did have like spin dashing and I don't know. I just feel like, I guess, and this is more so booting upon the game more so than like anything against the game. But I feel like this kind of Sonic gameplay would be really ideal if they just gave them all of his traversing moves, including the spin dash and homing attack, and the boost. That's like a short, like you say, like short boost thing, like a short burst of energy. Yeah.
It's like, no, actually, you go first.
yeah, I think with the way they have the boost here, you still can pull off some cool stuff. Like even like in the cyberspace stages, like I constantly see people gameplay and they're getting to a point of constantly mastering. Because that's the one thing about Sonic is the replayability, and like the cyberspace stages, they do open themselves to the proper replayability. Like with that short burst of boosting, like people are able to do like proper skipping of the levels to get to like different parts, or to be able to get to maximize their times on the stages, you know. And I think like that, I think that's kind of what's like nice about the way they're going about it here. Versus, if anything, if they try to continue something of sort of a boost esque type thing moving forward, I'd say it's like maybe have levels where it's like this is all about really boosting and doing the crazy shit like you were doing in like Generations on or Unleashed, and in other levels it's like you have, you know, boosting mechanic, or like the small boost, air boost type thing they have in the cyberspace stages that we see in Frontiers. You know, like a mix and match of probably different control schemes. I'm no like I'm not trying to knock that, but it's not what they did here. Obviously, it's more of a in the future, like that would be a nice like thing to implement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You
Like,
know, like I think about like the cyber stages versus like the way that they work in something like Generations. Generations is probably the most like precise, clean version of the controls that I can remember even thinking about. Because even like every move that you can do it super quickly. Like it's responsive like that. But in Frontiers, in open stages, it might be there's a little bit of a lag with certain kinds of moves. And I'm fine with that in open space, but when it comes to the cyberspace stages, I want that if I hit like a boost pad, I don't have to wait for Sonic's animation to finish for me to be able to hit boost. I want to be able to hit boost as fast as possible so I can get that super fast time.
right.
That's why it's sometimes frustrating, like especially that 1-2, where if I was using generation controls, getting that time would still be a challenge, but feel possible. But because of the way that the controls work in Frontiers, it's like you're fighting against Sonic's animations. Then also, there are some parts of Sonic's moveset that don't even get utilized anywhere. Like,
His slide.
Sonic, his you know that slide thing that Sonic does? Where
Yeah,
it's moving really fast and you press B?
Yeah, the
You
slide.
barely use that at all in Frontiers.
Yeah, I mean, you could use it in like combat. It's just people don't. But it's like it's one of those things where it's like it's a fine option that's there, but we could have probably like we could have been using hurdles in cyberspace stages, if anything. Like that's what I'm saying. That's one of those ideas that could be used like in a future title. It's like we have a sort of boost-esque stage where you're really running fast, but it's really testing your reaction times, and you do got to remember you have the slide, so there could be hurdles where it's like, hey, go under here, so it's like, oh, let me hit the slide, or
Yeah,
otherwise you get
No, you continue.
like like say in like Sonic 06 where you had those like lasers that would hit you if you didn't slide in time. It's like, yeah, implement something like that where it's like, if you don't hit the slide, you're gonna get hit. Like you're gonna get hit, lose your rings, or you might die even if you don't have any rings.
There were like I was playing all those like cyberspace stages. Maybe there's some that I still haven't played, but like I kept expecting at some point that it was going to be hit with like the thing that Generations did a lot, where like there was a little crevice and you had to like do the slide to get through it. It was part of the flow of having the reaction time, and that reminds me of other things. Like there's so many small things that Generations and Unleashed had in terms of like Sonic's controls that were part of making you. That was part of the power trip of yeah, my reaction time is really good, which is there's the slide and there's the short hop. Sonic doesn't have the short hop anymore, and it's awful, especially when grinding on rails and you have like grind rail bosses where you can't short hop over obstacles. If you jump, you are either jumping to another rail or you are jumping off of the thing completely. I don't know why the short hop was like removed from his moveset.
I didn't remember much about the short hop, actually.
It was like it was such a simple, easy thing where like it was the kind of thing where if you press the jump button and you hit it lightly, Sonic doesn't turn into a ball or jump really high. He does like a tiny little like you know how in Olympic Games
like closer to a jumping jack type deal. rather than
No. Like when they have actually, it's closer to the hurdle thing where he's jumping over the hurdles, but like it's really short. Sonic
ah.
had something like that where he just did a short hop. It was really useful for if you needed to jump over like some kind of like rock or thing that was in his way, or if you needed to just kind of like jump over something in like on the rail thing. He either like do a flip or he just do a really short hop. And it's not in Frontiers, and there's many instances where it feels like it probably should have been there. I think the best example is that one boss on the second island that's like this giant thing
The wyvern?
with 4 legs.
No,
Not the one with the rings.
no, no, wait, yes. It's the one that's flying around?
No. It's the one that's like it's the first mini boss that you run into on the second island that has the grind rail rings around it. That boss desperately needed it, and there's other bosses on like I don't think it's the third island. I think it's the 5th island that have the same grind rail around the thing again, and they put obstacles on the grind rails that in other Sonic games you would short hop over them, but this game is instead wanting you to move to another rail, and it's not always clear how to do that without dying. A short hop would have definitely solved that issue.
I don't know. When it comes to like grind rails and they got the little spikes on them in this game, like I don't know. I never ran into. I don't think I ran too many problems. Well, yeah, I never really ran into too many problems of like the grind rails being the reason I died because I was missing a hop.
No, it wasn't killing me. It was just like it was annoying to have to reclimb. I think there's been several instances where my roommate was watching me play the game, and it's like, fight that boss, the caterpillar thing. I don't want to fight the caterpillar thing. He convinced me to do it, and I got pretty far, and then some bullshit with the rails happened, and then I died, and I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm gonna go somewhere else on the map. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's the one thing is that I at least appreciate the fact that they're like the enemies are out in the open and like you do get to see them like ahead of time. So it's like if you've already beaten this boss and you don't feel like fighting him again, you could just walk around it. Like I know some people complained about it's like, oh, some enemies full on trap you and you kind of do have to do something against them, or at the very least get them to the other phase where they'll at least let you run away. But like I said, it's telegraphed enough. Like they're seen so far in the distance as like you have the ability to just walk around it to avoid the confrontation.
I think there's only one mini boss enemy type that like there's you could accidentally run into the trap and you're just kind of stuck in there until you like knock them out, which is the one where like it's those red things that circle around you in this like tornado thing, and you have to parry them.
Yeah,
I hate that thing.
Oh yeah,
so,
those.
Like, I'll be like trying to go to some other mission, and I don't even see them there, and suddenly I'm trapped. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, those. Yeah, they're on the last island. Like those are those were like mad annoying because it's like, are you serious? I have to. It's like, damn it, because they're so small, and you might think they might be the other type of enemy, like maybe the ninja or something. It's like, no, that they're not. You get caught up and it's like, crap. Now you gotta do the parry and you can't like hop over them to get away. It's like, so you're just stuck fighting them.
It's not even like they're hard either. They're just like they're just kind of annoying. Like the parry thing is already kind of strange, especially in those situations, because for some reason in that boss, if you have to like because the thing wants you have to parry, you have to get your parry ready. The parry button, it's not reading for the parry button immediately when that thing starts. There's like a 1 to 2 second wait before it will actually register that you press the parry button. And there have been so many instances where I get hit on the first time just because I'm hitting parry and it's not activating, and by that time it's too late.
The thing is, are you just simply leaving it at hitting parry instead of holding?
No, like I'll try to hold it. And in fact, actually, if I hold it, but I did it before the thing is ready to start reading it, I'm not getting ready for a parry. I'm essentially thinking I did, and then Sonic gets hit upside the head, and I'm like, wait, what did I do wrong?
I don't know. Like, I've never had the problem with. If anything, my problem is with the parry is that it's way too easy. But like, I don't think I've had a problem of it being delayed whenever the little circular dogs like come into play. Like,
Goddamn circular dogs. That's what I'm gonna start calling them. I don't. They probably have a name, but I'm gonna call them circular dogs.
yeah,
That's
because
all they deserve.
I don't remember if they give you the name in the game for those
I feel
things.
like they do. I think they're one of the few like mini bosses that doesn't have like a title drop thing. They just kind of happen.
Yeah, but I don't know. My old problem with the parry I've always faced is just the matter of it shouldn't be a hold. I don't know, or at the very least, and this could probably be fixed in like an update. If they made it so the parry was timed in like normal and hard mode. Like if you're in normal and hard mode, then you have to time the parry. If you're in easy, then you can just hold and it'll do it for you. But because that's kind of my thing. It's like I don't like I don't know. I've played DMC and DMC like games, and having a parry that's timed always feels more satisfying because that really showcases your skill. Whereas where you hold it, that's just waiting for the enemy to be stupid, and they're programmed to kind of do that. To just hit you at any moment. So you easily can predict when they're gonna do it anyway. Whereas
So you can,
where you time it, it's like that's all on your skill and timing and paying and reading your enemy properly.
Unless this is like, I don't necessarily think this is like a problem, or it's probably closer to a nitpick, but like it's really funny that like you can just hold the parry forever, and if you are in the air when you hold parry, you will freeze in the air, and you will stay in the air until you let go, and it just looks really funny.
Yeah, that is a little bit like, okay, that's a bit weird, but yeah, as long as they didn't do somewhere, but it's like doesn't break the game or mess you up or nothing. It's just kind of a
It's kind of a goofy thing to see. I do think that if they wanted to expand on the parry thing and still have the be stuck in the air, one, if there was a time limit for how long you could hold that parry, that would be great. Not necessarily because it's needed, but more so that like it encourages you to think about when you're going to use the parry. It just makes it more fun, a little bit more challenge. And two, if the parry wasn't because it holds you in the air, it would be cool if you could utilize the fact that you hold yourself in the air. Say like so there have been because I know that if you get hit, if you dodge after getting hit before you hit the ground, you can avoid losing your rings. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. I don't know if that's intentional, but that kind of is like a gameplay flow thing. If the parry kind of worked to where you could use the parry to stop yourself from hitting the ground, and it either gave you like a emergency jump or a dash, that would kind of be a cool way to give the player more control in how they how they are engaging in fights. Probably even like in just cyberspace stages. I don't know if the parry thing even activates in cyberspace stages, but it'd be really funny if like you could utilize the parry to save yourself real quick, dash back onto the platform, and then continue on to save your run. That would just look really cool.
Yeah, I mean that sounds interesting to be able to build it like that. If anything.
Ooh. I'm looking at like the footage that's playing in the stream, and the camera broke through the Ishira.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, this isn't like me playing the game. This is just gameplay footage from who the hell is this person? What is this person's name? Gamer's Little Playground. So if y'all are curious about this, like y'all can go there after this stream or something. But yeah. Just so y'all know, don't think this is me. I'm much better at this game than this guy. But yeah,
I also have a question for the room, and maybe even people in like the comments. Like some of the leveling system confuses me, and I think it's mainly like the stuff with the ring to speed capacity and the speed capacity to ring. Is there any reason to actually give yourself a higher ring capacity?
No. Like if anything, I guess to make it a bit more difficult to traverse, because the way it is if you increase your ring count in order to get your whole boosted Sonic like level, you have to like you basically have to like you'll have to get that new increased ring count in order to do that. You know, like
Mhm.
it's set at 400 in the base game. It's like it's just 400, but when you upgrade it to any higher, it's like in order to get his max speed mode, you have to now get that new increased ring count. And overall, there's literally no point in doing like the ring increasing the ring capacity. I kept it at like 400, 406 or so. That's it. I never like bothered to increase it after because it literally is kind of pointless. If
Honestly, the
any,
same. Because like while I was playing, I was like, for what reason would I want to increase my speed, my not the speed, my ring count? And the first time I did it, it removed my like boost thing, and I had to collect more rings. I was like, why did it do that? Why didn't it like give me some rings with it to keep me up there? And
right?
I realized, wait a minute, I don't think they thought this ring capacity thing through.
I think part of me wants to say it might be for the difficulty thing. Like when you reach that one elder hermit, it's like, oh, you could switch out between your speed and your like ring count, and like, I don't think it's really that help. I don't know. I try to keep it at like I just keep it at its base because it's like it's not like you're getting a higher health count anymore because the way it works is sometimes you get hit certain times you could lose if you get hit by like a certain attacker, so you could lose all your rings, and in some cases it's like you lose some rings, so it's like eh, it's
Yeah.
kind of like all over the place on that front.
Now that like when Nero does art, I just mentioned that like the speed thing kind of like only speeds you up slightly, and I think yeah, because like it speeds you up in increments. I never noticed because I always have my ring count maxed out, and the boost is already so freaking fast, and I don't think it's affected by the speed thing at all.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be honest. Like I'll admit, it's like I don't know if I felt like Sonic moved a lot faster when you upgrade him. Like, but well, I mean, I've seen comparisons, so it's like he does move a bit. He does move faster, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
if anything, it's just they probably can make it a bit more pronounced per se.
I think like the way that the boost looks when you have your ring count maxed is how I think the boost should have been looking the whole time. Because when you boost without your ring thing maxed, it doesn't feel good. It like you it feels like I'm holding the button, but I can't actually tell if he's going faster or not until like you've like made the his speed thing way higher.
Hmm.
I don't know
If
why. I think
if
it might be because like there's less effects on him.
it might be
While
that
all the
like it
games, whenever he boosted, he had like that aura around him.
yeah, he had at least like the little distortion thing to happen when he does, the woo thing, and like he does. Yeah, here it's more left to a sprint, and I can understand why they went that route because it's like, yeah, if he could just do his like unleashed or generations boosting, you create a problem of he's just getting across the map too fast, and it gets you to a point where it's like he's not exactly or you're not incentivized to really explore too much because or you are incentivized but you're gonna get through it too fast, and they wanted this to be a bit more of a longer Sonic game, like because this feels like a game where they were making it clear that it's like we want you to be able to like play this in the long term. But
Mm.
I think a big problem that happened was Sega, you know, ain't give them a lot of the budget. Their team also was cut down significantly from like forces. So it's like, so it's like they could only do but so much. That's kind of why I don't get too cruel on this game because I know it's like, yeah, there's probably budget stuff that got in the way.
Kind of same. I know that like with this game, I kind of give it some slack in areas where I could tell something was clearly unfinished. Especially like after like I went into the files and like I haven't even like gotten that far into looking through the stuff, but there's a ton of like audio, just like dialogue lines that are not used in the game but are there and I know where they were supposed to be used, and you could tell that they didn't have time to implement this. There's
Right.
the best example is Sonic has a lot of lines of him interacting with the Cocos, but
Mm.
you hear none of them. This is the kind of stuff where he's like him discovering a Coco, him seeing a Coco he's never seen before, him just kind of like playing with them. None of that's in the game, and you could tell they wanted it there, but probably to get this like shipped and out and finished, they kind of had to just be like, oh well.
Yeah, that's sort of my thing. Like people have been posting like moments of where Sonic's talking as he's traversing, and I think, and I'm like, wait, when I played this game, he really wasn't saying a lot of stuff. He was pretty silent. And it's like, oh, that's because they just found the voice files. Like that's just in the files. That's not what's actually implemented. And it's like maybe in an update they'll fix that where it's like, okay, let's unlock those voice files, hopefully. But because just so everybody knows, this is a spoiler stream, so you know, like what we mentioned, we're gonna be getting into like even more major details as we go.
Sonic dies.
Oh my god! Oh my god! No. But like, like there's certain parts where they like basically imply that the comics are now canon to the games because that seems to be where they're trying to go with this, which is
Tangle.
yeah, they mention Tangle and then they say Boom to a degree, at least a character from Boom is now part of it is now part of this universe by the end where Amy mentions Styx, which is great. It's like, oh cool, I like Styx, and it's going to be interesting to see how they implement her or how she like, because they clearly have to probably redesign her so she's about the same height as everybody else because she was like still somewhat taller than everybody. So
yeah, I think that's more so I guess kind of rebooting the characters, even though they do talk about what they already exist, but like it might be them in their own, in this continuity and not necessarily the comics or the Boom continuity, like Dragon Ball Super and like Broly and everything, how they rebooted Broly and made him and Gogeta canon without making their source material canon.
Yeah, I think they are trying to make it so now like the IDW comics is canon. Like they're not trying to make everything, but I think they want to find because there was recently like a position for hiring people to help with keeping continuity together, like for Sonic, and I think they're basically now learning, okay, if we're gonna have these comic books, let's actually make sure they are canon towards the game. So if people pick up the comics, you're not wondering, hey, where's this character in the game now? Like, I mean, only
virus thing to be canon so badly. That's so funny.
I mean, that would be if I'm trying to think. It's like, would that if they could try to turn that into like an actual game or something?
Imagine like Sonic. I know they make a lot of references to mainly games in the in this, but it would be funny. It's like, well, this is almost as dark as when Cream saw her mother turn into a zombie.
That's my thing. It's like this game, like it does hit some emotional highs, but if it could get to the level of like the IDW comics with the metal virus saga, it's like, okay, we in some shit now.
That would be it'd be kind of kooky crazy. And he like there's somewhere in the chat Nero does art is bringing up how like they kind of like the canons staying mainly separate, and I could see that. For me, I'm kind of fascinated by seeing the Sonic canon be kind of like, what is the word, consolidated?
Consolidated.
Because I don't think I've seen. There's probably media that's done this before, but I haven't seen any media try to like streamline their stuff in that kind of way, where they say, okay, everything is sort of canon in this like semi rebooted way, where like these things exist in this world. Maybe the whole. I'm wondering how deep it goes, because it could go as deep as that Sonic Prime is canon in a multiverse way. Because that would be a good way to explain some of the nonsense. but having that stuff where like you could see something in the comics and you're thinking that that's just a comic exclusive character, you're never gonna see that, and then you see it in the games, I would lose my mind. I would be like, is that Tangle? Hey yo, oh that's so cool, 3D.
Right. Like, if anything, that'd be one of the cooler things that they could implement. Like, if anything, like, they don't gotta make everything connect 100%, or like you said, they could do just a multiverse type deal. Like, it's like, oh, here's the Sat AM universe, here's the Sonic Prime universe, here's the basic mainline games with, but the only thing I do want to connect is the comics with the games, because with the way the IDW comics are, it's like, okay, yeah, this, I can see all these things existing in the same realm. So, you know, nothing feels like, oh, like if it was the Archie days, that's where it's like, oh, hell no, none of this connects. Green Knuckles. Oh yeah, Sonic's parents are alive somehow. They look exactly like him except for like a tuft of hair.
We're never getting Sally Acorn in the game. Sorry, guys.
That I'm not. I won't say hold out. I will say, but like with what Ian Flynn and a bunch of other people working there are trying to do, it's like it is a push. It's just the thing is, it might not be verbatim the Sally Acorn that, you know, we all know and love. Like, she probably won't be a princess. She probably like isn't gonna be like Sonic's love interest again. Like, but she's probably gonna be like, she's probably gonna be far different.
The day I see romance drama in a Sonic game again.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, there is like this whole thing with like Sega where they really don't want to implement like romance. Like their thing is like, yeah, no, characters can't be in love, and or like none of the Sonic characters could be in love or anything like that. It's like that's kind of annoying. I mean, I can understand it when you like look back on like the Archie comics where they like went balls to the wall all out for no reason. Like,
wait,
like there's
heavy-handed on that.
Huh?
Yeah, they were a little heavy-handed on that.
Yeah, like that was like set, and like when Sega found out about all that, they were like, reel all this shit in.
I can't believe like there's a plot line where Sonic literally gets with somebody that Tails was into and that he knew.
That's what was so fucking weird. I'm like, what the hell?
That's a really weird direction for you to take the Sonic characters.
Right, like thankfully they broke that up, but it's like that didn't need to be a thing. It's like Sonic took Tails' girl. No.
It's like, especially considering like mascot characters, it's already kind of hard to like convince certain companies to let their characters go certain directions because they don't want to alienate their audience in that much. When you start treating characters like real people, or real people in the sense of like they're a little more fleshed out.
Yeah.
That means that there is more room for people to find something that they don't like about them. And companies don't like that, but also at the same time, you have to take those kinds of risks because that's what gets people more invested in them.
Right.
People can be into a character for their aesthetics and like what they're iconic for, but I mean like you're gonna be hard pressed to find people who feel really, really strongly about an interpretation of a character, and it's not like that interpretation didn't feel real, that they didn't have flaws or such and such, because people like that stuff. People like character detail, and you can tell it's been like pulling teeth when it comes to like these people working on these games trying to get Sega to let these characters be more expressive and like be upset with each other, etc. I feel like the farthest we've seen it before Frontiers was definitely Lost World, and even then it kind of seemed like some of that stuff got rushed.
Yeah, like, yeah, I totally get why, but the thing is like I feel like they work with what the comics are doing now is like they're finally chipping away at that, allowing flaws to exist, because you know we saw with we're seeing constantly in the comics, it's like people are mad that Sonic won't imprison Eggman or anything like that. Like he let him go after he like Eggman lost his memory, and then lo and behold, Eggman got his memory back, and then implemented the metal virus, and people are like, "Yo, why didn't you put this man in prison? He literally like is the cause for all this pain and suffering right now." And Sonic's whole thing is like, "Yeah, but I don't." It's like, "Yeah, he did this, and my whole plan is to always stop him every time he messes up." But I don't. But I want people to be free, because he has. Basically, they're allowing him to have an actual philosophy. It may not be a philosophy you agree with, but it keeps him fleshed out. It makes him interesting. It makes you wonder how the story goes if he's gonna live with that philosophy. So, if anything, I feel like they're finally learning. It's like we gotta let Sonic actually be a character. Like, let him not just be the hero who shows up to do things. And part of me feels like some of that comes in from the movies, like, or at least the first movie, because they didn't get to see the second movie while they were developing this, and so I think they've learned is like we can allow Sonic to be flawed, and they also learned it a bit from IDW as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think moving forward,
Sonic
we might
can mess up and people still like him.
exactly, like that's the thing. It's like you can have a character mess up as long as it's like engaging, as long as it like tells the story proper. Like that, then you can get away with the character being flawed. That's what's always interesting, is watching a character have flaws and be able to like conquer those flaws.
Thomas Proctor's completely correct. Like some of the like Batman Joker type nonsense where Sonic is like, yeah, but like, see via my philosophy, like ending them like that is just kind of making us just as bad as that. And I was like, well, Sonic, okay, hold on. You are talking about terrorists. But like you understand, it's still, thankfully, you can still somewhat understand where Sonic's coming from.
Right.
I do feel like maybe he could like. I remember one criticism I had for some of the stuff that Sonic has let slide. I was like, you could at least make sure they go to jail and are like incapacitated, maybe, so they can't just do it again.
Yeah, if anything, that's always the one thing. Is like, okay, yeah, we know you don't kill, but the very least is like put him in prison so they can't keep doing this.
Lock him up! Lock him up!
Right, but that's the thing. They keep that interesting thing about him with the fact that he's just like, I don't want to put, like, I want people to be free. Like, even those who might be terrible. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if this was a case of like, oh, Eggman was actively killing people, he'd probably be like, no, I can't let that be free. Like that probably, but it's Sonic. They're not about to let Eggman be that evil.
I find it hard to believe that Eggman hasn't killed anybody, especially because there's so many instances where he has purposefully tried to kill Sonic and his friends.
I mean, he probably has attempted, but he's failed each time because, like, yeah, the missile and Station Square part is like, yeah, that
hit Sonic with what? You're still alive? You were trying to kill me?
Exactly.
I thought we were just playing games, Eggman.
He finally learns. It's like, oh, Eggman's actually a real villain. He's not just playing around. It's like, no. He really isn't.
That is kind of interesting that like Frontiers is probably like it's probably one of the few, maybe one of the only few Sonic game stories where he's featured like that, and he's not trying to kill Sonic, because he's not trying to kill Sonic in this game, mainly because he starts the game trapped, and immediately his like his daughter is like, yo, we kind of like need his help. I don't wanna.
Right.
We're gonna die.
Exactly. Like, right. They play him up to be like more in line to be. I'm just trapped here, and I just want to be able to harness this power, but he hasn't. He doesn't really have a plan to use it yet. It's just I want to harness the power, but the power of the age is like, yeah, no, you're not about to harness this right now.
It is a very interesting dynamic, especially when you consider like the Ask Sonic stuff, which I have to imagine is like that uh, fourth dimensional kind of canon, where like it's only canon in the sense of these characters are aware that media exists, but somehow the adventures that they experience are still happen, and because at least according to like that Ask Sonic thing that happened recently, from what they're saying, the games are real games that exist in their world based off of real adventures that they've had.
Mm.
Which I can see that being a way to excuse some of the like nonsense inconsistencies with these characters. That like when Tails has like some of the bullshit that he's either been through or weird stuff that he's done or said, that it's exclusive to the games, and what really happened, while still probably being similar, is not as poorly constructed as that.
Mm. Right.
But then like they're also just kind of chilling in like what I could only assume is either they're physically there or it's some kind of call and Eggman's there. And I remember one of them, Amy was like, "Oh yeah, we should all go to like Little Planet and like do a picnic." And Eggman's like, "Oh, I want to go too." No, I don't. No, I don't think you should come.
Right.
Like, that man is a terrorist via definition.
Right, like you can't have him be there. He literally enslaved that planet. Like, no.
It's crazy that he's in the call anyways, but I'm also happy that he's there because these are characters.
Right. I mean, granted, I think their whole thing with those Twitter takeovers is they're not exactly canon, considering it is a lot of it is like the voice actors like just going off the cuff.
Mm-hmm. I was always interested in how they're doing it because some like the kind of character interactions are so good. And I'm like, is someone like writing this stuff like on the fly and they're like voice acting it, like just putting it through like a really simple editor thing, or what's going on?
I think they're like full on off the cuff. Like I think they really are. Like the actors are just that like entrenched with the characters, like, or that connected with the characters that they pretty much are like, yeah, I could do this in my sleep. I can like actually tap into what the character would say in this type of situation. You know what I mean?
If those are improv, they're really impressive, especially because like they're not just showing a knowledge of the characters, but they're also showing a knowledge of the community. Because though some of the answers they respond to like people who are known in the community, like Games Cage or Cybershell, and they'll make a tongue-in-cheek reference to something that people who know those like micro celebrities are like, "Hey, yo, wait, Sonic knows that?"
Right. Like
the fact that they were able to reference Game Cage saying that like, "I hate you, Tails. I never liked you. I love nothing about you," and like Games Cage even forgot about that. That is so funny.
And then they roasted him.
Roasted him.
I was like, damn, man, you going outside right now.
Like, kind of crazy. They're kind of crazy out there. There's the enemy. I'm like, oh, the thing that's on your screen right now. That's
the spring enemy.
No. It's in the distance.
Oh,
I wonder if the camera will go back to them. It's that weird ass thing to the left.
Oh yeah, the big spirally thing or spire thing.
Yeah.
That one was a little tricky because the camera, like, like Sonic ends up as he's going around it, the camera will literally get blocked because of the leg on that thing.
Yeah.
It's like, God.
So that's also unfortunate. But it's also actually one of the least worst versions of that type of fight, because the ones that happen later on in the game are like, at least you can escape this one. If you are brought into a grind rail part of the fight later in the game, you are essentially stuck there until you beat it or die.
Yeah, those can be a little annoying. That's kind of my thing with the open world. Like I am with Kev is like I can like I'm a bit soft on how they did the open world here, with it being a bit more open and barren, with the fact that it's like because in this one it feels like, hey, we're experimenting, we're testing it out, we're trying to make sure this concept can work in like a future reference, or like we can build upon it proper. and like I think that's kind of why I'm a little soft on it, is that it feels experimental, like it's trying to figure out where they can consolidate from and where they can build from, and instead of like I don't know, I feel like with this what I would want to see is what Kev asked for, is like some NPCs, an actual populated area. I know it'd probably be tricky. It's like, but I don't know if they space it out properly. It's like, here's this one little area where it's just nothing but NPCs. There's not really any obstacles and all that. Maybe there's some hidden goodies here and there. Like maybe there's like some shops, but overall it's dedicated. But overall it's dedicated to like interacting with NPCs and characters, and like the stuff we got in Sonic Unleashed. Like if they implemented that type of system, I think like with all the other NPCs, where it's like maybe you talk to someone over here in this one little village, and their story ends up building it later on if you go to another village. Like I think that would be like honestly nice, and it builds up the world more. Like because the thing, it seems like, because I know a lot of people are like mad at the idea of like humans in the world, but it's like we kind of haven't seen humans in a Sonic game in like a while, like say for Eggman. And I'm
Yeah.
fine with humans as long as it's like you got a mix. It's like it can't just be, because that's the thing. Like I don't want a Sonic X thing where it's like Sonic and his group of friends are the only like talking anthropomorphic animals. you know, like make it a mix. Make it so it's like there's regular like humans, but there's also other anthropomorphic animals. Like mix it up.
No, they're gonna hit us in the same way like Mario Odyssey did, where like there's just that like there's few locations that have like regular looking humans. Everywhere else is just strange and uniquely Sonic. Apparently, the current lore is that like they're on Earth, and
Yeah.
that depending where you're at, you're either gonna run into creatures that are like Sonic, or you're going to run into like regular human world stuff, which is interesting. I'm curious to see what that actually will look like, both geographically and also like aesthetically.
Right. Like if anything, that would be interesting to see if they can if anything, there's a story to be built on that. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe they finally address the idea that's like, every time we go somewhere, some places just have only humans, and in other places there's only animals. Like in Forces, they made it clear it's like, oh, here's all the animals characters. I mean, it's Forces, but still, like there were other anthropomorphic animal characters.
Honestly,
like,
I feel like the game would have benefited from, and obviously this would have been like maybe a much different game, but instead of just having the cyberspace levels, like what the game should have just been in cyberspace. And I say that because I'm also looking at this from like an anniversary perspective angle. It's like you could have had NPCs and everything if like maybe like the first open zone you are in cyberspace is based off of the classic Sonic era, but instead of being strictly Green Hill or Sky Sanctuary, it's an amalgamation of them all. And you could have had like maybe in that area the NPCs are more so like the animals you free from the Batniks, and you can still have like all the enemies and stuff you face in the game in there that now they're just infiltrating cyberspace. And then you go to like maybe the next open zone is more so based off the adventure games, and that's where you have like not only NPCs like humans, but then maybe you have like Shadow as a character, but it's not like it's cyberspace Shadow, so it's a different kind of Shadow. Am I making sense?
No, you're making sense because like I kind of agree.
What
I was
you-
kind of expecting that the game like was going to. I don't necessarily need the islands to also be cyberspace, but I wanted them to utilize what they were saying because they were justifying cyberspace is basing it off of like Sonic and his friends' memories. It's all extrapolated from things that they've experienced. That's the reason to be able to reuse those assets. And I'm like, okay, cool, continue with that. But I don't think they had a chance to really expand on it, because if they continue to, and here's where my brain, like, my brain says the most extra conclusion for that is, that part of the game where Sonic shuts down because he gets corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
let the player go into his mind. Send him into his own little mind cyberspace that is a hodgepodge of all the cyberspaces like aesthetics that he's seen so far, but even more messed up. And he
Like
has
more
to like,
corrupted.
yeah, and he has to like get through the level to get out of it. Because then it justifies the whole corruption thing past just like, oh, his friends just kind of appear. If like maybe when they, I don't know what happened to them, they kind of explode and then he like is freed. But if the justification was that they went in there to talk to him and help him, um, and it was like a elongated cyberspace stage about that, that would be a really cool way to have that part of the story still be part of the gameplay. And it would also further justify the whole cyberspace based off of memories thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, if anything, that would have been like a nice like thing to like play into at that one moment. Like, because it could have been like a nice, not, there's a word for it that I'm just kind of blanking on, but like a nice thing before we get to the closer to the end game, I guess you could say. Like
Probably
before.
probably make more sense than the whole tower thing that they do for the fourth island.
I think they could have still kept the tower thing, but it's like implementing your idea, like you said, would have also like really added a punch to it. It's like, damn, I'm continuing forward, and but as I continue forward, I'm corrupting Sonic, and now it's resulting in, and now I have to. It's resulting in me now having to go through his memories and everything to try to help uncorrupt him.
But yeah, that would have been really cool having like that the cyberspace because like all the other islands have cyberspace stages. That's the only one that doesn't. It would be cool if like the way they justify, oh, this one still technically has them. It's just Sonic he's having this little quirky moment, mentally ill.
It's just to call mental illness quirky. Jeez. But yeah, if they did it like that, I think that would have been a really nice touch. It it also is kind of the thing. It's like I don't know how they would forward, but I mean implementing that idea where it's like a consolidation of all these different like past cyberspace levels all mixed into one. Like maybe that could have been a whole 5 minute like level where or sort of akin to Unleashed even. Like I don't know, like maybe that could be considered the final send off to Boost if deciding to not do Boost formula anymore. No.
See that? I feel like they probably aren't gonna give up on the boost thing, because like in terms of the open world thing, cyberspace stages are still easier to develop. I think the one thing about Sonic that I didn't get to mention earlier is the reason why they have so much trouble developing for Sonic is because of the fact that he goes so fast. The content that you make only lasts so long, which means that he's expensive to develop for.
Right. Like that's kind of that big that is kind of that big problem. It's like he's so fast and like nobody who builds like any type of platformer makes a fast like platforming character. They're usually like can go at a moderate speed, so that way it's like it's not a lot to process or anything like that.
Yeah,
Like
you're
that's kind
usually expecting that the assets that you run into will be on screen at least for maybe, if at minimum 10 seconds. But for Sonic, it might actually just instead be a few milliseconds.
right. Like that's kind of that problem, kind of that whole thing. But going forward, it is going to be a question that, and it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping because with what happened, at around the end, it's very much implied everybody. Because if you did the side stories for everybody, it's implied everyone's kind of splintering off to do some other thing, like some soul searching. Tails is like, hey, I gotta kind of just go it alone for a little bit. And Knuckles is like, you know what, I'm gonna go actually see the world. And Amy is in the same boat of, I kind of want to go off to really spread love across the world. I don't know if they. I don't know where I stand exactly, but part of me is in a mix of I'm hoping that's either going to be spin-off games or maybe potentially like expansion DLCs. I mean, granted, I feel like that'd be a lot to try to do as an expansion because like you probably have to build a whole new like open area or so for the characters. But
honestly, I hope they just use that to make the next game more like I don't know, because what I really wanted to see in Frontiers that I knew we weren't going to get, but something that Generations did really well is that you have those character stages where you're either like kind of going against the character, like the Vector one where you're like hitting music notes back and forth, or the SBO one where you're trying to like find and hit SBO, or
Mm-hmm.
you have stuff like the Amy or Knuckles one where like Amy uses her hammer when you press Y, or Knuckles will like dig, and like that's relevant to like the mission of the level. Uh, I kind of hope that like in the next game, if they keep this kind of open world format, but again utilize it better, and not have islands, but like in actual Sonic like locations. I would love it's like okay for this location in the game you get there and Tails is your assist, and we kind of get to follow up on his arc. And then you travel to a different location. Boom, Knuckles is there. The next one, boom, Amy is there, and like they all like help you in gameplay. Like they fight alongside you in gameplay, but you're also furthering their own arcs throughout it. Throughout it.
Could be their Sonic World Adventure 2.
Yes.
All the characters are splintered off to do their own thing on
Oh,
parts of the world, and Sonic's just kind of traveling around visiting them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind to kind of bring it back to that idea I had about like say spin-off games. I kind of would hope they fought like they finish everybody's stories in that regard. Like give them their own solo games that maybe use this like the Frontiers framework. Like, that way, it's like the characters themselves are actually playable again. Because people are missing that. Like everybody's like, I want to be able to play as these characters again because they ditched that back in '06 since that was '06 and everybody hated it, but they didn't learn the lessons properly from it. Like,
I feel like, as much as I do think that would be really cool, I'm thinking about where Sonic the Hedgehog is right now. It's at least modern Sonic is still kind of like trying to crawl itself out of that like dark reputation hole they had. So they're probably still gonna focus on making sure that at least like the next few games are the consistent kind of quality. It's like, oh yeah, people are looking forward to our stuff and not thinking it might like they're expecting a trade wreck. They probably don't even have like the money to do too many alternative spin-offs yet. So the best plan, at least for now, would be to continue expanding on what they have done. At least to be fair, this is a repeat of history because this is what people wanted to do when Generations came out, and then Lost World came out, and then Forces came out, and it was clear that they were going to do that.
I mean, I don't know. If anything, I feel like they could do it as long as it's not Sonic Team making it. Because I've heard, and it's like don't quote me on this, but like I've heard there is possibly some type of new type of game being made by Dimps, and so it's like maybe they are sort of implementing something like that. I don't know. That would be I don't know if they do it right, where it's like this isn't a mainline game, but because let's face it, we're probably going to be waiting another 5 years for the next mainline game. They got to do something to keep Sonic like relevant in some sense, unless they stick to like plain DLC expansions. Which
I mean, should it take 5 years if they? I feel like they have a good basis for this, and there's like what 3 years in between Generations and Unleashed.
Yeah, I think Frontiers probably took 5 years only because one, their last game was very, very poorly received.
Yeah.
They were already kind of like in the shitter, both financially and because the pandemic happened, which like I don't know the specifics, but I know Sega wasn't looking too great, and there was a moment in time where we were kind of afraid that Sonic was going to go with them.
mm,
And now that like they've the fruits of their labor of like, okay, let's refocus things for both from a business standpoint and just a reputation standpoint. Let's get Sonic a little bit more focused and give this thing the time it needs to be as polished as it can be. And considering they were reinventing so much, I can see why, even though it took them 5 years, this game still isn't like as like extra as they wanted it to be. It's still fairly extra. But now that they've done what they've done, and they know that it works because the reception for Frontiers is really good. I'd imagine that they'll probably take what they already have as the groundwork for this game and be able to turn around something much faster. Because I remember,
Hmm.
didn't like for a time they were like releasing a game every like year or two.
What were they at some point?
There was a
Yeah, I
time
think
where
for a
there
while
was
it's
like,
like we had Lost World one year, and then the next year was, I think, Sonic Boom.
mm, like they were
But
like,
granted, that wasn't Sonic Teen. That was like Big Red Button. So, and that was
yeah.
a spin-off game, but it
But at
was
least
like
during that time, it was like we were expecting some form of Sonic content every year,
yeah, yeah, we were.
and then like obviously things started getting dark, and we didn't have a mainline Sonic game for 5 years after Forces, which was that's a that's a dark place to like go on a 5 year hiatus.
Yeah, it. I mean, I'm hoping that one thing that also happens is like Sega finally gives them more money because, like I said, like I think I said this earlier, is that you can feel moments of like, oh, they didn't have the time, they didn't have the budget at some point. Because let's face it, like, because the main thing people complain about in this game are some of the mini game challenges, like most notably the pinball level.
Oh, the pinball.
Like that shit. Like I'm fine with pinball. I could say that, but holy shit, 5 million points. You have to get 5 million points, and to get the multiplier is really freaking difficult. So that's already kicking the balls. So it.
See, the pinball thing was so funny to me because when I first started playing it, I don't remember if there was text or anything there explaining what I was supposed to do, but I probably skipped it. So like, I'm playing it for like a while, still just like sitting there like, okay, wait, how do I win? Did I already win? Is it one of those things where like I have to reach a threshold, but I can keep going? If so, if I already reached the threshold, maybe I should try killing myself in the game. And like right before I lost my last life, I won, and I was like, oh, that could have been really bad.
You were about to be real mad.
I would have been so pissed off if I died. It said game over, and like I still didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Oh my god. Like that's what like, and the thing is, the funny thing is, it's like they could actually fix that one by with an update by just lowering the value of that damn thing. Like make it so it's like 200,000 or 500,000 at least, you know, because 5 million points. Like I can understand if it's like you can return to this game and reach that type of number to unlock like a secret thing, like some customized option or something, but like just to play the story.
I'm sorry, it's such a funny like game design decision. Not because it's good, because it's terrible, but
It's clearly if anything, they could have just left it as a cutscene. It's like this. It's just a cutscene. We're not gonna implement any gameplay, anything. It's just gonna be a cutscene to
I've
just
seen
move
enough
us along.
pinball games to know where this is going.
Oh man, or at the very least, add an option to skip it because it's like, hey, maybe you don't care for pinball, so you don't have to do pinball. Because God.
Mhm.
And then like you get to the end game boss with like Supreme in the end. Like when I first played this against the Supreme, I was a little like, how the fuck do you fight this guy? Like, or because you can't parry him because otherwise he'll just knock you back and waste your time. And I went into that fight without building up my ring count, so it's like, oh shit.
Wait, you
So
can't parry him?
yeah, when you try to parry him, it basically you're gonna get knocked back because his little like turrets are gonna like shoot you away, and like
Oh.
so
Wait, hold on. Because I beat the game. I remember beating it in the same way that I beat the other bosses. I think, like, the only boss that I struggled with was the first one. Um, Mainly because I didn't realize what the game wanted me to do.
yeah, you didn't build up your ring count and you just went in.
No, I had a decent amount of rings the first time I went in, but I didn't know what it wanted me to do to, like, do damage, and my, like, attack wasn't really that high. So, like, I was barely doing anything on it. Like, I was at a point in the game, especially because I entered the boss without realizing that I was entering the boss, and there's no way to leave. So I couldn't like be like, oh man, I'm not upgraded enough for this. Maybe I should come back. I can't. The game doesn't let you do that. Um, so I died, lost all my rings because once you enter a certain phase of the supersonic boss, it forgets how many rings you had when you entered, so you start with 0. And now suddenly I'm to the stricter time limit, still not doing that much damage. And it was the only boss that I had that problem with, because every other boss that I went into, I had my thing maxed out. I was understanding what parry thing it wanted me to do. I think even like the last boss, and I did that boss on normal, so I didn't get the extra boss thing. I don't remember like having to retry that. I don't actually. I don't remember what I had to do to beat that one. I think that's the one boss that's in my memory the least.
Wait, what? The Supreme or
Supreme, yeah.
That one? First one, it's like okay, you have to fight him and wait for an event to trigger where he pulls out the gun and shoots you. Like,
oh yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, because you get to a point where you can't damage him anymore, and it's like, oh, what do I do? It's like you kind of gotta hold out. Like on first playthrough, it's like, yeah, that's gonna be a kick in the balls because you don't really know what's happening. But then I was able to replay it again because it was like, because once you play, because like it'll save where you before you actually go in to fight him, and like you can retry it anytime you want. And like when I did that, when I played him again, I was like, oh, okay, I actually understand how I can do this a little bit better. For one, I can build up my rings before I go in, so that way I have a lot of time. And two, it is very. I know I'm just getting his health down to a certain point until it triggers a certain cutscene to happen, or the quick time event that's going to end the boss. And the thing is, but my thing is, what becomes annoying is when you beat him, you get to the damn end. Holy hell! I don't know why they thought a bullet hell was a good idea.
Yeah, I didn't get it either. When I first beat the game on normal, and I've not tried beating the game on hard, and after finding out what actually happens on hard, I'm like, I don't need it.
Right, you don't need to fight. You don't need to fight the end. Like,
I was already stressed doing those hacking mini games because I was like, this hacking mini game came out of nowhere, and like, this isn't necessarily a playstyle I like, but I'm like, oh, at least it's just some mini game,
right?
Whatever. Finding out that it's like the actual like final boss on hard was the most confusing thing I'd ever heard, because I was like, what? Why?
Right. It's one of those things where when I played it, I was like, why? Like it got because it was so because it takes a lot to finally kill that thing. Like you don't get like any super shooters or anything like that. It's just the whole yep, just shoot the little projectiles coming your way, and I'm like, ugh, like I don't know what the. Be honest, like because I don't try to judge a game based on what I personally wanted it to do. I'd go based off of what they wanted to do, and I get the feeling they wanted it to be a bit more of more of a spectacle, but sadly it just couldn't be that. But it is still like, why bullet hell? Like that got introduced literally on the third island. Like you're basically halfway through the game and you're introducing bullet hell, and then somehow it's like, oh yeah, that's also supposed to be the final boss. It's like, what?
For a Sonic game, especially like where like I think it's just crazy to me because all the other bosses have been like the most extra hype thing ever. They wanted it to be as like anime as possible. And then you get to that.
And it's like, okay, didn't really stick the landing on that last fight, but next time, please, like Sega, give them a budget, give them the proper time, give them a lot more workers and such, and let them have a hype like final boss, because this should have been like akin to like Unleashed, because Unleashed, to be honest, has like the absolute best feeling of a final like confrontation. It's not perfect, like the supersonic section is a little weird because it's like you're just popping like what little warts on Dark Gaia's shield basically. So it's like
it seems like there's a pattern with some Sonic Team games where like usually towards the end they're really crunching and trying to figure out how do we still give this like a minimum viable product for like the end boss. One of the worst examples in my head, and there's probably worse examples, but to me this was like the most horrendous, was Sonic Generations end boss, because that thing was a confusing mess. It's so clear that they wanted to do more,
I
especially
think.
considering that there's some aspects of it that's like, okay,
Hmm.
they wanted to like split this design more, and
Right.
only had time for this, and it's broken.
Right. I think. I really think it was one of those cases of like. I don't know. I think it was one of those cases like, yeah, like you said, they wanted to do a more excellent idea here, but I think the one game that really showcased it was Unleashed, and sadly from then on they just couldn't make a spectacular final like boss thing. I'm hoping moving forward with this type of new framework they got, they do implement something better, because here's the thing, it's like Frontiers to me has the absolute best boss fights in any Sonic game.
Oh
like
yeah.
like just the first boss with Gigantos, it's like this even trumps freaking uh perfect chaos. Like this
Yeah, a lot of the boss fights in Sonic games, especially the 3D ones, are just hit the weak spot, hit the weak spot, hit the weak spot. But Frontiers felt like the first time, like they were making a next gen boss fight in terms of, okay, you actually need to use the skills you've learned and not
Yeah,
just platform and hit the enemy or
exactly,
boost and hit the enemy.
Yeah,
exactly.
because like I think about like this game probably like has nothing similar to Sonic Frontiers outside of like some of the stuff that I saw. Because my roommate Angel, uh, I got him this older game. It's one of the Metal Gear. I think it's Metal Gear Rising something. And I was watching him play it, and I was like, this shit looks like what Sonic Frontiers like was doing. With the really extra stage cinematic type of like boss fights that are still interactive.
Yeah,
Um, and I was like, I love that shit. Even if like there's probably more involved in that game than is on Frontiers, because at least with Frontiers, it's mainly just like keep spamming the button and parry at the right time and do the quick time events. It's not hard, but it's fun as fuck and it's really fun to watch. And
right,
that's what was important. Like it mattered more that it like felt good to play than that it was challenging. And I'm fine with that.
right. Like that's what it is. It's like it's not DMC. It's probably akin. It's probably more akin to like Baby's first Devil May Cry. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because that's basically what Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is, because it's made by the same people who made Bayonetta.
A
And
word? Okay, that makes
yeah,
complete sense.
yeah, from right, it's made by Platinum Games, and like they love those like high action combat games. If anything, it'd be cool if Platinum made like a spin-off game for Sonic and implemented like or played around with this like combat system and implemented something they could do. That'd be cool to see, but I mean, wishful thinking. Like, but I do think what they did here with this combat, it's really fun, and it's also very experiment. Like you can experiment with this, because that's my thing. Like people might be talking shit. It's like you really just use one button to fight. I'm like, no, you have multiple means to fight if you're choosing. Because this is the thing about most combat. This is the thing about most like combat based action games. You really have to learn it. It's all like you can spam if you want, but it's not going to be fun. And but when you actually learn some comboing, learn how to do some tricks, learn how to cancel, because that was a thing I learned about the combat in this game. You can cancel out of certain moves, like his little like Sonic's little zipping kick. You can cancel out of it. You don't have to go forward with the full animation, or even like his little spinning like ball attack. Like you can cancel out of it. Like you could do a few hits and then cancel out and then continue with a different combo. Like it's literally like they literally were going with the mindset of the world is your oyster. We're going to just let you have at it. You know?
Mhm. I think like maybe there were some issues because this is another criticism I have of the game that would be very easy to patch out or patch in, whichever would be it. But the tutorials on how to use certain stuff are not great. Say like that zip attack thing. the tutorial for it, the description is bad because it's like the left and right bumper, but it has a slash in between them, and then it says square. And I've checked with other people. Most people, when they see that graphic, think, "Oh, I'm supposed to hold them both and hit square," and then they're like, they're wondering why it's not activating, and then they find out you have to hit either or. If they replace the slash with an or instead, that would probably communicate better. Because usually when people see a slash, they go, "Oh, it's supposed to be like both."
I think they were thinking, well, a lot of people have played combat games and know when they say slash, it means or, unless you put it like and slash. So I think they were because I don't know, when I was playing, I was like, okay, yeah, like left and right bumper do the same thing. So obviously, if they're saying press one, if they say left bumper slash right bumper, it means or. So I think I don't know. I think they were just thinking that.
Probably. I know at least the fact that like I wasn't. If it was just me, I could like believe that that it was probably just like an issue with me not reading it. I know that the kinds of games that I play, I'm not paying attention to the text as much, and especially since I was playing this as if it was like a Sonic Generations game, and there isn't usually much combat in those modern Sonic games. I'm thinking, I'm just kind of like, oh, it's probably but it was the fact that like my roommate, my friend Trevor, a few other people, like my friend Samelia, also ran into the same issue. I was like, okay, so this is like, this is a communication issue that's happening with multiple people. But there's other attacks that have similar things where like, the command that they show for how to do it is too vague. Like, they've simplified it so much that like it's giving people too much room to misunderstand what they're saying. And it might just be like, because I know the reason why they probably would use like the slash or something is because it means that they don't have to work too hard on localizing it. If they use and or, then they have to like change that for every language that has a different kind of and or. But if it's just a slash, pretty much all languages can like tell what the slash means usually.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. It because I don't know. I didn't run into that problem, but like I said, I'm used to like combat games in their tutorials.
So I think Kevin's internet went out.
Yeah, sorry, chat. Kev's kind of out. he sends his regards. His cat like screwed up his router and knocked it over. So, but
the cat. God damn.
But yeah, I'm trying to think. In terms of Sonic stories, I kind of do put this up there like above a lot of the mainline 3D games. Like I think I find it better than Adventures 1 and well, I don't know. Do I find it better than Adventure 1 and 2? I kind of do because sorry. I think with Adventures 1, it works well when you're doing Sonic stuff and Tails stuff and Knuckles stuff. Amy's feels a little too, she's here, but she doesn't really play into the story that well. It feels like she's too much on her own adventure.
Her like story is actually more useful in giving context for Omegas than anyone else's in that game.
Yeah, and even with Gamma story, he doesn't feel like, he still feels like a side story that's not related to the main stuff. It's like, hey, go find these robots that Sonic clearly didn't fight. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, so I definitely would put it up above 1. Avenger 2, I think it's like, I used to have a bit of an adversity against Adventure 2 because I thought, yeah, there are some confusing things. But when I thought more about it or saw a video by this one YouTuber named Nezumi, like they pointed out a lot of the gripes we had with the story aren't as bad. Like the idea that, people confuse Shadow and Sonic, and it's like, or like the military confused Shadow and Sonic. It's like, not necessarily. In the localization, they just, like in the English localization, they forgot a certain thing where in the dialogue, Shadow makes it clear that it's like, Gun was only going after Sonic because it's like, hey, you're the only talking hedgehog that the public knows about. We just need a patsy. Like, we're not going after you because we know you did it. We're doing it because we don't want our secrets about Shadow the Hedgehog getting out. You know?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the issues with SC2 story are solved just with like cleaner presentation because like uh, SC2 had bad mixing,
Yeah.
animation was kind of hit or miss, but there clearly was like intention and thought that's there. There's a reason why like that's still connected with people, um, but I think that Frontiers is probably closest to like that kind of like care about the characters, taking it even further and having a presentation that's good enough to where it definitely helps. I think like at worst Frontiers will give like characters kind of like the stationary kind of world AI type of motion, which you could tell is they were just running out of time. They just needed this stuff out. Those are probably even placeholders that they just had there. And if they had the time, they were going to put more detail on. But on the scenes that really like, you could tell that they needed this scene to be one that you cared about. They animate that shit really well.
Oh,
Characters
yeah.
are expressive. The scenes, the lighting. Well, I guess the lighting is different about the lighting because the game cutscenes kind of play wherever you are
Right.
and wherever at time you are. There's probably a few cutscenes that change the time, and those are usually pre-rendered cutscenes. But most of the time, like they just have really good staging, boarding, and character acting. I think some of the highlights for me are like the scene where Tails is like venting about feeling like a burden. They like they went all in with his emotion. The scene where Knuckles and Sonic are kind of having a heart to heart about just about like getting more out there and such.
Yeah.
I thought that scene was good, and then the scene with Amy and Sonic, that one also looked really good. And like that part where he's like, "You take a moment, I'm gonna keep going," and it's like the shot of the symbol and like up in the sky. I'm like,
Right.
that's so good.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen Sonic like hit it out of the park in that sense, which is probably why when like the ending comes around, a lot of people were underwhelmed because the story was actually doing really well, keeping you invested in these characters and wanting to know what happens, and they couldn't deliver and on the ending the same way that they're delivering in all these other scenes.
Hmm. Yeah, that I think that's kind of a bit. I think that is kind of the thing. It's like everything else was building strong. You know, we're getting good lore, we're getting good continuity, but sadly, when we get to the end, I'm not gonna say they fumbled per se. It's just. It's like it could have. It's more the spectacle could have been stronger. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like the song "I'm Here" plays during Supreme's fight. If anything, like I said, Supreme should have been a first phase for a way more balls to the wall, out all like crazy, insane type of, fight. And but and I'm Here should have been playing there because it's a really hype song. That song's been in my head for like for the longest. Like I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, damn, that is actually like a really really good song.
Right here, that song now, because I was thinking on that too. Like it was like I feel like they wanted to do more with this song's lyrics specifically could fit with the themes that the game's already kind of discussing really well. And
Right.
my brain kind of always goes to it would be crazy if like they drew the comparison because they're doing it throughout the game. They're drawing comparisons and like they're drawing comparisons and connections between Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy between those four aliens that controlled the Titans that were like trying to save their home, and one of them fell off. Fell off. I probably should have said that, but like you know what I mean. One of them fell and died. Like, they dove in first. They didn't care. They just wanted to like save everyone, but they died because of it. And Sonic was going through something similar, where he's trying to save all his friends, but he's really hurting himself trying to do it.
Right.
And that would have been a really appropriate moment for them to make a connection of the fucking chorus line, "I'm here," to have it be both about Sonic's friends trying to be there for them, and then also those friends that fought all those like years ago. They didn't want his sacrifice to be in vain, so they went in fighting for him too.
Mm.
And they probably would have done that if they had the time.
Exactly. That is sort of the thing with this game that I find so fascinating, is that it's because it's not a bad game, and we're finally at a point with a Sonic game, a mainline Sonic game, where we are at the point of talking about what we can do, what can be done to improve upon it, rather than tossing the baby out with the water, like with the bath water. Like we're just at a point of where do we go from here? How do we fix this? What is the things to be fixed here? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's something that I find really great about this, is that we're at that point where we're not just constantly thinking about like where Sega fucked up or where Sonic Team fucked up. We're thinking about where do we improve? Where do they go from here? How do they make this so it's like, okay, great, you laid your good foundation. Now we just need to build from the foundation, you know?
Yeah, because I think that's probably why, like, whenever I see like reviews or takes about Frontiers that are like, they're mainly nitpicky, even though I'm kind of sitting there like, you're not wrong, but I don't feel like our focus should be on that, considering that, like,
right,
this is clearly Sonic Team essentially trying to reform the way that they work on Sonic.
Right.
And it, really, if you had to weigh the bad from the good, they're doing a ton good, and most of the stuff that's like flaws is just a lack of polish. I forgot which review I saw, but like they said, yeah, most of my like criticism is mainly just a lack of polish. But you don't get polish unless you have the time and money to polish.
Exactly.
Something that, like, if you try to polish too early, that means you're cutting your game short on like a lot of the heart that it has. Which a lot of previous Sonic games, they did that. They like cut what they were doing short and doing a lot of the polish. And if you can't, you can only polish a turd so much. So you have to make sacrifices on like polish. And thankfully, we're technically in a modern age where games can be patched. You shouldn't encourage that games come out unfinished.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because of the nature of the game industry right now, there's never going to be a game that comes out that's fully like complete. There a lot of things are pre-planned. Marketing, often you can't like refund or push that stuff back. If they have a schedule, they have to go with it. And I think with the schedule that Sonic Frontiers had and the way it came out, this is the most complete of an experience that I wouldn't say. I don't even think that it needs many patches for you to still consider it to be like complete. It is complete.
You're right.
Like, Sonic Frontiers is complete. This is a complete game. This is not Sonic Forces where like everywhere you turn, it's just incomplete idea after incomplete idea after incomplete idea.
Exactly.
Where things seem incomplete, seem more like they had a complete idea, they had a more extra idea that they wanted to do, they just couldn't do it, so they had to go with the basic idea.
Right.
That's good. That's good for like a first reformed Sonic game.
Exactly. Like, and before I say anything else, shout outs to Jordan Fringe and tomato sauce in the chat.
Stop talking about feet. Stop talking about Sonic's feet in the chat. Stand here.
But like, the thing is, and that is kind of the thing, it's like we finally are at a point of a genuinely complete Sonic game, and that's why it's like it makes no sense to be so harsh on it, because it's like it literally can be smoothed. Like, yeah, it's a little rough, but it's a complete rough, you know? All it is just, let's get some sandpaper, let's kind of sand over it. And the great thing that's happening now is Sonic Team, especially like Mario Kishimoto, the director, like they came out and they're like, okay, we're hearing your feedback, and we are going to implement this stuff. Like the first phase of the game being out is like now we're just gonna take in the feedback and try to implement some of the fixes. So, and that's the thing, this game is updatable. That's the great thing, is that this game, they're probably going to be sending out updates now to basically fix whatever certain gripes people have. Sure, like in terms of like the final boss, I don't think they can fix that. Well, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, how would you feel if they decided, hey, we're implementing a free update that adds that actual spectacular final boss? Like, it gets rid of the bullet hell, and it's like, here's the actual spectacular final boss that we wanted to do. How would you feel about that? Would you feel it's like revisionist?
If they came out with like a massive, like, it's like, see, games have done that before. I made a comparison earlier of like if they No Man's Skied it and like released this massive update that basically added all the things that they wanted to have out, because I'm pretty sure the thing with No Man's Sky was that like it got rushed out and screwed over by like some company deals, and they had to release a lot of the stuff that actually made the experience complete later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If Sonic Frontiers did something like that, I'd probably invite it, because I love this game and I want to have more reason to play it more.
Right, you want the replayability.
Yeah, I want that replayability. There's this huge world, all these things that I still want to continue to interact with, but as it is right now, once you beat that game, there is really no reason to come back unless you're replaying the whole entire thing.
Yeah, like there is kind of, because even when I beat it, I managed to unlock all do to 100% the islands, but I didn't collect all like the tokens, because I'm like, what am I going to get out of that? Like, oh, you get to upgrade Sonic, okay, to make him broken to the point that he beats enemies in like one hit.
They give you a lot. I know this because they're probably trying to give you so many options so that like you can get through this game without feeling like you have hit a wall. But also at the same time, they didn't give any of these tokens any other intrinsic like kinds
like
of value.
Necessity, yeah. Like, if anything, if they wanted to implement like an end game thing where it's like, okay, these tokens can now be used to get customizable skins for Sonic, like some customizable clothes or so. Like maybe he gets his riders out, like quote unquote outfit, because it'd just be like shoes and his gloves, but like something like that or so. I think that'd be cool. Like I said, if they did try to revamp and just make a whole new end game boss, like, you can keep the Supreme fight, like I said, as the first phase, but the actual like big baddie that we fight, like if you switch that to an actual balls to the wall all out type of supersonic fight, like the other fights were, supersonic fights were, but it's, you know, way more crazy and insane, and you really got to be thinking about how you're playing it. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Like, some people might think, oh, that's sort of revisionist, isn't it? And people might be, but here's the thing: if it's free, as long as they make it a free thing, like how No Man's Sky does it, it's like, because that's the thing, No Man's Sky, the thing they do is like, all this is free. Any new updates, they're all free. You don't have to pay an extra penny. And if they do it like that, it's like, oh, then hell, for all we know, I don't know. Do we consider this a AAA game or just an A game?
I don't know. I've kind of come to terms with like, we should probably stop looking at Sonic games like they're AAA, because they're not. Like, Sonic Frontiers is a really, really good game, and it's large, but I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
To what quality AAA games are right now, Sonic is not there, and I don't think it needs to be yet until it figures itself out more.
Right. Like, over time, if anything, they can keep building. Like I said, I would like to see expansions, like in any expansions they could do. Maybe they add a new island that maybe it's Sonic and them's home, you know, that's a place to explore. That'd be fun. But
that would be cool. I would actually, honestly, if there's a paid DLC where they added an extra island, I'd probably still buy it, because I mean, I'm here for the content. I bought the game twice, so I clearly
that, yeah, like this game, it's literally a lot of potential, and it literally can build, and that's just kind of the great thing. It's like, I know people have been, we've been hurt by Sonic Team, it sucks, but now, especially because a thing that was interesting to find out when you beat the game on hard, there's a song that plays at the very end in the end credits, and it's because it has like Nate Wants to Battle, like the singer, and the lyrics literally is basically a message from Sonic Team to the fans saying, "Hey, we know we got a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn, but we are definitely here for the long haul. We're here to do the right thing, to do like that, to actually like make a great game for you guys." And like, I'm trying to see if I can find the lyrics again, because I liked it was in a tweet. It's somewhere. I know I can find it before it get. Here we go. Uh, it's like here are some of the lyrics. It's saying, obstacles are no excuse, come with me, there's nothing to lose, turbulence won't stop us, we'll keep pulling through, challenges life throws our way makes us even stronger today, this is how we ignite. Like, they said we'd break, they said we'd lose, but here we are, what else is new, stronger with every fall, faster with every mile. Like, that's the message from Sonic Team to the fans saying, we know we are going to get better. We are going to do better. And this in Frontiers is basically them saying, yeah, expect better from us.
That's why I'm so optimistic about Frontiers. I don't. Still, people are still like, I don't know how many people. So there are definitely some people who are still doomer about Sonic as a franchise, like too burned by Forces. And honestly, Forces was like, that burn was so bad that I pretty much had given up on Sonic at that point, at least that side of Sonic.
Yeah, the games.
Yeah, so I could see why like people might still be in that, even not like not even be able to look past the stuff that's wrong with Frontiers. It still be like, I still want better quality, and they're like, you know what, you should continue wanting better quality, continue encouraging Sonic Team and Sega to give us stuff more high quality, because they can do it. They've expressed that they can and that they want to.
Right.
And but like in doing so, you're gonna also have to show them that it is worth it. Frontier so far, I think, has, because I mean, like, first time in a while that you look at like the Steam page for a Sonic game and it says overwhelmingly positive, and it's like launch.
Right.
It's on launch. That's crazy. I hope they're paying attention to that. People
right.
like this. People like this direction.
And that's my thing is, a thing I was fearing what could have happened was we could have gotten an Unleashed at launch, like, reception thing. Because, like, when Unleashed launched, it was coming out in a post-Sonic 06 world, and people were still reeling about how bad 06 was. And don't get me wrong, it was a bad game. But, like, people, that hatred carried over into Unleashed to the point that Sonic Team ended up taking kind of a bit of the wrong lessons.
Sonic's had a bit of a rough transition to 3D.
Basically. And like, the thing is, it's like Unleashed was one of those, no, you can build on this. Like, the Werehog isn't bad. You just need to fix up some stuff. Like, get rid of the Sun and Moon Metals crap and refine the combat a little bit. Because if anything, the combat could have been used for another character, like Knuckles or something. Like someone else could use this type of style, because you can't use
Sonic and Knuckles 3D.
Oh no, that would be interesting if they decide to make 3D versions of their old 2D games. But like,
thinking about like actually, you finish the thing you were saying, and then I'll say this thing about Shadow.
Like, I don't know. I think that was about the only thing I had to say. I was just gonna respond to what you said.
All right. Because like I remember like hearing somewhere, I'd have to find the source again, but I know that like Sonic Team has expressed that they want to do more with Shadow, and they do. They still love working on stuff with Shadow. I mean, clearly the third Sonic movie is going to include him, and Shadow has been in a lot. I'm pretty sure he's been in most of the Ask Sonic things, because he gets questions a lot. They know he's popular. Even when they were doing Forces, they made episode Shadow. I mean, it was not great, but they made it because they knew that people like Shadow and they want to do stuff with Shadow.
Right.
I'm wondering if they're going to do the fact that Shadow was involved in the Frontiers ask. I'm kind of sitting here hoping. I wonder if they're going to make an extra island and have it feature Shadow instead of Sonic. Because I would buy that. I would buy that. I would buy that. Take my money.
Yeah.
I will play Shadow in the style.
Right. If anything, if they wanted to make a DLC for Shadow, that'd be cool. I do think though they need to move off the mandates, or more or less the guidelines, where it's like, oh, Shadow has to be stoic. He can't have friends because Team Dark is not a group of friends, which was like the hell.
That's
like,
so lame.
Yeah, they need to. They just need to get off the Vegeta complex with Shadow. It's like just make Shadow like he can still be somewhat brooding here and there, but I'm gonna be honest, the way he acts in the somewhat in the Sonic in the takeovers is a little like it's like okay, it's kind of fun, like you know, like he's not as stoic. He can kind of roll with a few of the jokey punches here and there, or roll it'd be a little bit silly in a more dry way. Like that's actually kind of nice for like if anything, implement that stuff and remove the whole he's always just mad and angry stuff. Because let's face it, it's not interesting. It's like we already have Vegeta. I don't want another Vegeta. And even with Vegeta, like even like when you get to Dragon Ball Super, they make him fun. Like he's still like they do something where it's like I can get a laugh out of him. So it's like just build from there. That's really
give these characters their personalities. People don't like Shadow just because he's edgy. They like what like they like they like the aesthetic of that. But like I know for a fact there's a lot of people that like would make compilations of every single time Shadow the Hedgehog has smiled because they want to see him smile. They like that he's been through this stuff and that he's still like pushing forward. That's what at least I like about Shadow. Like in terms of like his stories so far, that like the stuff he's been through, he's trying to do better. I mean, at the heart of him, he's trying to like do good by like a friend that he lost years ago, Maria. And I don't think Maria would be wanting him to only be like an asshole to everybody and be a loner.
Right. Like that's a whole
ultimate life form.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a whole thing where it's like you could literally just let him be an actual like character we want to be around, because as of right now it's like he's not someone I care to be around. And the restrictions ended up going far. Like even with Sonic Boom, when they used Shadow, he's like so stoic, and even the writers were like, we were reluctant in using him. We wanted to use him more, but because the guidelines said he can't be too expressive, we can't tell jokes with him or anything like that, or do anything silly with him. It's like, well, then we don't want to use him. That's why he only appeared in like the season 1 and season 2 finales.
I want to hear like the asks where Shadow's like talking about his favorite dessert. I'm like, that's great. This is the kind of like flexibility that characters have in like I would say like an anime or something, where like they have all these characters that are like already have these like high profile exaggerated personalities, but they are not afraid to do juxtaposition stuff with them too, because they know people like that.
Right. Exactly. Like that's just got to be the thing. It's like they just got to move off so hard. They got to just move off those mandate or guidelines, because it's like Ian Flynn and them, they don't like it when they're called mandates. Like they just kind of like, I understand, it's like, hey, it's part of a brand and we don't want it to get too muddied to the point it's like it's unrecognizable, but at the same time it's like you gotta allow for some different interpretation here and there, some so that way it's like it's a fleshed out character and they're engaging.
Yeah. And it seems like Frontiers, with like the characters that they have, they've been doing pretty good with treating the characters like characters, not like mascots with hard and fast rules.
Right.
Which has benefited the story a ton. It is way more enjoyable. It's much easier to get invested in these characters because they have that route to like grow and question themselves. Because beforehand, it was kind of like they have these aspects of these personalities and they can't ever question them. I don't know, even Sonic, like seeing Sonic struggle with like some of in this game, Sonic is struggling with the fact that like his whole go hero attitude is hurting him, and he reaches a point to where he can't help anybody because he's like put himself in that kind of danger where he needs help from his friends. That is cool that the game let that happen, because I don't think that has happened before. In like, I think the most recent one I can think of is Unleashed, because when Dark Gaia takes that power thing back, Sonic passes the fuck out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And in this game, even though it's really quick, letting Sonic's friends coming in to help him isn't like, oh, this cheesy come out of nowhere. Sonic has been spending the whole game hyper focused on saving them. It makes sense that they want to repay that favor. They've been watching him the whole game get worse, and trying to check up on him and not being able to do anything because they're not physically present. And when they finally are physically present, they do something. That's great. That's fantastic. That's good writing.
Exactly. Like, it's all about, like, it really is all about, like, letting these characters be, like, have that emotion, be able to be built upon, you know? Like, because that's the thing about it, is, like, Sonic, his whole thing, like, back in the 90s, yeah, his whole thing was that he is different from Mario, and it's like, in this day and age, you should play into that more, like, you know? Because that's the thing, is that Nintendo's not willing to let Mario be more than what he is, but Sega, to differentiate yourselves, do that. Allow Sonic to be more than what he is.
You think about like those big IPs that are like, my brain immediately goes to stuff like Star Wars, and people would not be as invested in Star Wars just only on aesthetic alone. They love the characters, they love the world building, they love all that. They have something to be invested in. People's connections to stories are stronger when there's stuff for them to grip onto. Like, there's stuff for them to bite. And I mean, people like Mario, just because it's like you know what you're gonna get when a new Mario game comes out. You like the characters, you like their aesthetic, you like their surface level interactions, and you like how like Nintendo will go extra in a different kind of way with that stuff. Sonic can't really afford to be extra like that. So genuinely, the most like efficient option for Sonic is to let the stories be more detailed.
Right.
To let the characters be more detailed. You can't be Mario. Mario can survive on like going yeah woohoo all the time, and people are still going to be invested. They love him. They love him for that stuff.
Yeah.
Sonic, he can only go woo so many times before like the fact that these games don't have the time and budget to polish as much as a Nintendo game, before people start kind of like dipping out.
Right. That also, like, to keep on with the Nintendo thing, a thing I kind of feel needs to happen moving forward with Sonic Team and Sega, they kind of need to move a little bit away from Nintendo, because, you know, they're like with Frontiers, I feel like they were stretching it, because it's like it's on PS4, Xbox One, PS5, Xbox Series X, PC, and the Nintendo Switch. And then with the Switch, big time, it's the weakest console out of all of those. And so they really gotta, so they're like, okay, we kind of gotta reel this game back a little, just to make sure the Switch version doesn't, you know, collapse on itself. And
yeah, that pop-in is atrocious. Oh
yeah,
my God.
yeah. Like, I'm able to get past the pop-in because it's like, okay, yeah, but it's not breaking, like, it's not game breaking where it's like, oh yeah, a thing just appeared out of nowhere and completely soft locked me or something. But it is like, it's a case of too noticeable. And like, I think a thing they just should have done, I mean, going forward, it's like they could still make games for Nintendo, but they should be like spin-off games made by a different developer. Sort of like how Sonic Unleashed was, where it's like you have the main stuff on PS3 and Xbox 360 done by Sonic Team, like the HD version of Unleashed, but the Wii version is done by Dimps. So it's like, oh, it's different. It's two different It's two different teams entirely. Instead of going the route of what happened with 06, where the team got split up, you know, which really hurt it. It's like, don't split the team up. just get a different developer to make the certain version or something like that, you know? I mean, I get it. The Switch is, you know, an HD console, so it kind of has to make sure the other games work. I mean, look exactly the same, but I don't know. It's
Love
just one.
that. The Switch is an HD console. It is? Oh yeah.
I mean, I think it only hits about 720 in terms. I think in portable, I don't know if it hits 1080
I
full
think it's
on
1080 like docked, and then 720 when
portable.
portable. But it doesn't go any farther than that. Like a lot of people have kind of moved on to like they're playing their games in 4K on next gen consoles, and the Switch is still only outputting 1080.
Right. And I think overall it's like that's just a bullet they have to bite, especially since Nintendo has kind of held them back for the longest. Like Sonic Boom Rides the Lyric, they were planning to do some really cool crazy shit with it. Like they had ex Naughty Dog developers making this, like people who made the Jack and Daxter games. And yet it's like, yeah, they're putting it on a console. They had to put it on the Wii U and they're trying to run the Crysis engine, but the Crysis engine can't run on the Wii U. So it's like it's completely holding them back. So it's like going forward, I would hope they just learn the lesson of, hey, we can have some spin-off games made, but we're not going to focus so hard on getting all other, like we're not going to put like the main games on like Nintendo consoles until they learn to just finally bite the bullet and just stop with the gimmicks and just make a regular plain HD console game, you know, that people can actually develop for. Because even still, like third party developers are like, it's still hard to develop for this thing.
Yeah, I know. Just like them being this far behind. If it if it weren't for the novelty of the Switch being able to be portable is usually fine for most people. And you know, for me too, because like I like Switch games. Um, they being able to at any time be like, I want to play a Switch game. I'll either like pull it out and play it, or move the dock. It's a very simple system to hook up.
Right.
And that probably was like that was a really strong marketing thing for the Switch. If it was more like powerful, it probably would have been even stronger. But if the Switch didn't have any of that novelty, what would be the reason for getting a Switch?
The only reason would be like the Nintendo exclusives, more or less. So
Exactly.
I can get why it's like they need the gimmicks because it's what makes them, for one, allow them to keep the console cheap, and for more people to want to buy it. And but at the same time, it's like, how much are you holding other like developers back because they're trying to develop for this thing, and yet your console just kind of is too tricky to actually to develop for, you know?
Yeah, and like the whole hardware versus software thing in the game industry is very interesting because it's basically like essentially like really limited computers fighting for each other, like fighting for space within this like industry, and PCs over here like yeah we'll accept whatever. I mean, pretty
Exactly.
much like your system is as strong as you're willing to like buy or customize it. Meanwhile, like the most consoles, you are not allowed to customize them or your warranty is voided.
Right. Exactly. Like with PC, that's why it's like I was like, let me get the PC version of this because if anything, even if it's like right now there's not much replayability in the base game, it's like the modding community can come through and be like, hey, here's something I was able to build or mod in. Like I don't know,
I'm
I'd be it'd be for I'm waiting on them to really do some busted stuff like oh, here's a whole new level that I just kind of made within the framework or something.
very interested to see which of the companies will be the first one to start accepting the modding stuff in because there is a huge market in being able to let people mod stuff. I think they're mainly afraid because they're afraid of it being both a security risk and also them not being able to monetize it. But if they can find like ways to make uh, just like simple modding possible for people, oh my god, the kind of brand loyalty people will have for that kind of stuff, to where they
Yep.
might even start like buying extra peripherals. I they just think about it. Just these are free ideas.
Exactly. Like literally, it's like you guys can rely. They could rely on their modding community to maybe fix up some of the stuff that they weren't able to get to, while they spend their other time focusing on the stuff that like expand the game or something. It's like it's like it's right there, and you can guarantee and like you said, you guarantee that loyalty, because people are like, oh, these people just really want us to like play their I mean, to like mod the game or add some stuff or fix it up. It's like, I mean, sure, it's for free.
If I was able to do the mod stuff, like on the PS5, I had no reason. I would have no reason to go do it on the computer, besides like maybe it being slightly easier. But like, if I could like just mod PS5 Sonic Frontiers, I have no reason to leave that console, because I honestly prefer playing games on consoles with the controller and on the TV. Going to my computer, I feel like this is the space where I work. I'd rather not, but that's not the reality I'm in. And I don't feel like jailbreaking my PS5, because they don't like it when you jailbreak their consoles.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But we've been going like over 2 hours now.
Started streaming 2 hours ago. That's two. I'm impressed that we like kept up several different points of conversation for Sonic Frontiers for 2 hours. There's probably more, but I mean, like.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like we probably start moving out a little bit. But I guess we could just get into some final thoughts, though.
Mm.
Like, if you want to go first.
Let's see. Final thoughts on Sonic Frontiers. I would say that this is definitely like. I only feel like Sonic Frontiers and where it's at is good news. It's kind of surpassed my expectations in terms of a Sonic game, especially after being burned so badly with Forces. I remember pre-ordering Forces and instantly being disappointed, violently disappointed. I streamed that stuff. People live saw me like being so mad that I paid $40 for this. But if people had saw me, my live reaction to playing Sonic Frontiers after pre-ordering it, outside of some like DLC glitches, I was completely satisfied. Even with like the ending being a little clunky and running into a lot of level design or control stuff that were like frustrating, the things that I want, the kind of extra stuff that I want from Sonic, were in this game. There is so much heart in this game, and that's what I wanted in Sonic. Sonic Forces was lacking that heart, and Frontiers kind of shows me, okay, no, we can believe in them. And we can't even believe in Sega will give them the opportunity to continue doing better.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like, with Frontiers, I was going in with the mindset of, this is a game where I was very much skeptically optimistic about it, where it's like, because I made this vow a while ago, and this was after like Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, when that game was just really bad. I said, I am never going to buy a Sonic game first day unless like early reviews say, it's good. Like, I don't need all the details. I just need people to say it's good, worth the money. That's it. That's all I needed. And I held true to that when it came to Forces. I never bought Forces. I played the demo, and that alone was for enough for me to be like, okay, that is not getting my money. Even, unless the reviews were able to say, no, you really got to play the full thing to like it. But that didn't happen. So I completely skipped it. I bought Mania because, people were saying, yeah, that's actually really good. And then we got and now we're here with Frontiers. And when it was like a week or so before, like when people were getting early copies of it, their review copies of it, and they were at least willing to say, you know what, it's good, it's fun, it's good, it's actually it's a win for us. I was like, okay, I will buy this. I even pre-ordered it, and I normally don't pre-order like that anymore. And with playing it, putting all the hours into it, it this is like, yes, it's rough around the edges, but with some good polish, you could make this an absolutely amazing, absolutely excellent game. But for what we have right now, it is still a great time. It is still a lot of fun. It is very much a love letter to the fans, and basically sort of an apology from Sonic Team, telling the fans, we know we messed up. We know we can't continue to do mediocre, and that we're not going to get by on just doing mediocre. So we are going to actually put in the work. We're going to listen to you properly, especially since the Sonic fan base is being a bit more level-headed in giving the criticism. They're not trying to be overly extreme, say for a few people, but they're making it clear. It's like, okay, this thing needs a little bit of touching up here. This could be polished right here too. Maybe touch up on that as well. But
all of Sonic's friends should die.
Oh my God. But yeah, but like they hear, but people are being reasonable about these like criticisms, and it's enough for Sonic Team, like with Morio Kishimoto coming out to say, okay, we hear you loud and clear. We probably can expect some updates in the future to fix up some of the stuff, like probably to fix that pop in, probably to fix up some of that control and such. Maybe even expect some, and hopefully, I really would hope we get some DLC. I would like some expansions. I would like them to fix up like the replayability, make it so it's like some of those tokens can go towards like cosmetic stuff, or maybe you open, or maybe they add like different sections to the islands, like new sections that we haven't seen before, you know, or maybe add a whole new island, maybe add a new character to play as, you know, so we can see that it's like this framework actually works in different ways. You know, that would be really cool if we could get that.
But it would be like a really cool like island DLC that I'm not realizing is just Angel Island.
I that's honestly what I speculated would have been the like one of the last islands. Is like, oh, what if it's because, you know, in the little Knuckles short, Knuckles, you know, ends up being teleported into cyberspace because one of the portals is on Angel Island. I'm like, what if Angel Island was one of the islands? And that would have been cool. It's like, oh, all of Angel Island is just this place to explore. Like, yes, please. And maybe it's all the places we've seen in Sonic and Knuckles 3. I mean, in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Like, that would have been cool.
Makes sense, considering that I'm pretty sure some of the island names are like actual like I don't know if it's either god or angel names. So to have like there's like Cronus Island, Angel Island, I mean it fits. It works.
Right. It does. I mean, with the story, it's like, oh yeah, it's just a case of the people who were in the Starfall Islands migrated over to Angel Island. And it's like, okay, I mean, that still kind of works. But, and if anything, that leaves it open to build a bit more on that, like in a future title. Or like, again, in a future DLC. Like if they wanted to do a DLC with Knuckles where it's like, we're on Angel Island and we're kind of exploring that or something, that'd be neat. Maybe throw Rouge in, I don't know. Like... But that's the thing. It's like but that's what's interesting going forward with Sonic Frontiers, is that we are now in a spot where we aren't just talking about the games just being terrible, being a letdown, or anything like that. Some people felt a little let down, and it's like, you know, feel your feelings, however you feel. But the majority of the people who get their hands on this game, including some of the most cynical people, or people who've pretty much abandoned the franchise, they're like, I'm having fun. It's just so much fun to be able to run around and do the thing that Sonic always advertised itself as. He's a very fun and free character. So to actually fully experience that's amazing. That's something people say, I've wanted that for the longest time, and I'm so glad we finally have it. And now all I want to see from this team is just them building on it. That's all I want. It's just build, build, build. Because this is just foundation work at this point. This is just a great, strong, solid foundation that all you need to do is just build from it. In a future title, it's like, let's throw some NPCs in there. Let's throw multiple playable characters in there. Maybe consolidate the island so they are a little smaller, but a bit more, like, extra in terms of, like, execution. Like, maybe there's a lot more obstacles to go through. Maybe. Or expand upon and implement more stuff that feels like it actually connects with what's going on in the island or in that theme of that type of area or so. Either way, it's like with this type of framework, the sky's the limit, and it's easy. And it's what's amazing now is that we can basically say Sonic is finally back. Sonic finally had a really great year. Because that's the thing. Everything that came out in 2022 for Sonic, it's been excellent. It's been something that hit out of the park. The only one thing that's still in the we don't know where that's going to go phase is just Sonic Prime. That's the only thing that's like, if that actually clears, it's like absolute perfect Sonic's year. This is Sonic's year.
I want Sonic sweep year. I need that.
Exactly. Like that is a sweep total at that point. If Sonic Prime comes out and it's like, oh, this is excellent. This is fun. It's great. It builds on the characters, or so it does, or something like that. It's like that's the sweep. Like Sonic had a great year, and Sonic now has a full-on reinvigorated fan base, and that feels good to feel. That's good. That feels good to feel, honestly. That the fan base is finally reinvigorated. Those who've left are finally coming back. Those who weren't really interested are like, yeah, I'm actually here for this. I kind of like where they're going. And that's just what it is. It's like, to kind of quote a Sonic game, like there's just endless possibilities now with Sonic. And that honestly feels great. And I'm just glad we're finally here with that ability to be happy for Sonic again.
Yeah, endless possibilities, unleashed reference.
Yep, that's where we gonna end it off. So I want to say thank you to Jake for joining me on this discussion stream.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was real fun chopping it up, talking about Frontiers and gushing and rambling as much as we did. Thanks to Awestruckvox for, joining us. Sadly, his cat, sabotaged him, but it was still fun to have on here. So, sorry to everybody who was expecting Storyteller to be here. Sadly, he had like a family emergency. I probably should have actually mentioned that way earlier. But yeah, he was kind of having some type of emergency and sadly just couldn't join us. But overall, still, I'm glad to have you on, Jake. Glad that Awestruckvox from the Roundtable was able to join. And if y'all want to see their channels, they're oh damn, yeah, been going long. I'm screwing up. Their channel links are in the description, as well as like if you want to buy some merch from the channel, that's also in the description. You can go in and pay, and they're currently running 35% off sales, like for just about everything. So go wild. Want to drop a super chat? You can. Well, actually, it's probably too late for that. But if you want to donate, the PayPal link's in the description. All that jazz. But overall, thank you all for joining us, and always remember, it's just a thought.